Well, I guess we're here. The pump is primed. The prime is pumped. I think we're about ready. Shall we do a show?
Let's do it.
Holy shit. Well, here we go.
Autobots, transform and roll out.
Mike! So many Mike! So many Mike! So many Mike! So many Mike!
Hey, welcome back for another thrilling, exciting, almost climactic episode, a penultimate episode of Two Mikes, Two Furious animated Transformers. If you are just joining us for the first time, we are a podcast where we talk about Transformers animated one episode at a time from two different perspectives. My name is Mike Seibert, and I have never watched Transformers animated before this project. I am your first time viewer, but I am not on this journey alone. I am not unguided. With me, as always, is the serial rewatcher. Right about now, it's the Spark Soul brother. It is my friend, author Michael Andrews.
Hey, Mikey, how's it going?
It's going great. I will confess to being a little tired. Like, you know, I've given you a hard time over the last couple episodes about how sleepy Michael Andrews has been. It's like 2 game nights, too furious. It's just like in this perpetual state of summertime game nights. And now it's my turn to be a little fatigued because I am still riding on the high and coming down off of the excitement that was Cybfest Northwest that, of course, happened back on August 3rd at the Kent Commons Community Center in the Seattle area. It feels like it was just yesterday. I'm so excited to chat about it, but also I'm excited that it's over.
Right. Well, I'm in the opposite boat. I'm wide awake. I'm dialed in because of the Cybfest. I want to hear about it. I want to live through it. But yeah, your notes from the last couple times about me being sleepy must have dug in because I'm dry sober. I've had my coffee. I've had my B vitamins. I made sure I got to bed. I mentioned about 15 times yesterday. I was like, I got to get to bed on time so I can get enough sleep. So I'm wide awake for the show. So we're good to go. I've had my Mr. Burns like razor blade throat thing that he has.
Yeah.
The Simpsons. I'm ready and dialed in.
And if you want to hear all about Cybfest Northwest 2024 and see what we unboxed, head on over to our YouTube channel where you can watch the full video of both of us discussing this year's convention, including a mini review of the exclusive Carbot Darcy figure, as well as a Transformers animated figure I got at the convention that ties directly into this episode, and a Holy Grail figure I was able to pick up for Michael Andrews. So tons of fun there on video at the Two Mikes, Two Furious channel on YouTube. Or, if audio-only podcasts are your thing, you can listen to our Cybfest Northwest 2024 coverage with bonus content recorded from the convention on the Mike Seibert Radio podcast feed. Available right now on your favorite podcast app, including the one you're listening to this episode on right now. All right. Well, in that case, shall we talk about an episode?
Yes, I think we should. Long overdue.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and this is kind of like it's a real Fast X, the end of the road begins.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So we are beginning our 2-part epic coverage of the season finale of Transformers Animated Season 2. Obviously, we are talking about Transformers Animated Season 2, Episode 12, overall Episode 28, A Bridge Too Close, Part 1. Written, of course, by Marcia Griffin, who we have talked about in the show previously. And I think, Michael Andrews, you had kind of categorized Marcia Griffin as kind of like the warm-up pitcher.
Yeah, she seems to be like a starter ender kind of.
Yeah, real starter ender situation, because like she wrote Megatron Rising Part 1, Mission Accomplished, Dead Reckoning Part 1 of 1. I incidentally watched that Dead Reckoning Part 1 of None the other day. Man, that movie holds up. It's so fun.
Yeah, it rocks.
It's about a half hour too long, but man, does it rock. But with Marsha Griffin, again, mission accomplished, and Bridge Too Close Part 1.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think we also have kind of Marty Eisenberg sort of, guest writing or like looking over the shoulder as Marsha Griffin's typing it up, making sure everything aligns. So I think we're in good hands here.
And up top, this episode's a banger. I had kind of talked about these two episodes, A Bridge Too Close, Part 1 and Part 2, as kind of being individual episodes, more so than Megatron Rising Part 1 and Part 2 was, because that felt like one continuous thing that just kind of got cut in half. And like, I feel like if you take out like all of the commercial bumpers and the credits and stuff, you could run Megatron Rising as kind of like its own mini movie type of thing. Kind of similar to Transform and Roll Out. This has a different vibe. I feel like A Bridge Too Close Parts 1 and 2 kind of has an Affinity War / Endgame type of thing, to where it is a continuous story and there is a cliffhanger, and we'll get to that at the end here. But I feel like vibe wise, they are two different episodes. Like the things that each episode does in terms of like setting them up and knocking them down, they feel like they're unique to each other in a way that Megatron Rising I don't think is.
Yeah, first of all, they're much more story based, where Megatron Rising was like fight. This definitely does set it up. There's actually like at the end of 1, there's sort of a cliffhanger for Part 2. That didn't really happen with Megatron Rising. It was just battle, kind of rise and fall. So yeah, very, very different feel for these. I really like it. I really appreciate that different tone. There's part of me as I was getting ready for this, and I was like, well, it's just going to be another 40 minutes of fighting. No, there's a lot more story here.
So we start right off the bat. Like I love how this just throws you in face first, and I feel like this picks up immediately where the previous episode, Sorry No One's Home, has left off. We see the Constructicons. We see that the space bridge has now been completed, and it's time for more Megatron monologuing. I'm sure we're going to talk about this sequence a lot.
Yeah, this opening, it's like a knighting ceremony, right? We're coming across, and it's very, Sith-like, right? It's in this dark cavern. There's something, I almost thought it was like, pagan or like, dark and foreboding in a way. And you have sort of, Isaac Sumdac is forced to bear witness to this dark act, presiding in front of him. Is really cool. But yeah, Megatron is sort of officially bringing Mix and Scrap into the Decepticon fold, and we're seeing like an actual knighting ceremony going on.
Yeah. It's weird. I mean, like there is obviously a foreboding vibe to it, but there is a undertone of creepy cultishness to it as well, especially where Megatron is asking them to recite this oath, and I thought
Chant, really,
it very much so. And I was really I'm surprised that they didn't do a joke that I had running in my head, because like he does it in a series of verses.
Now repeat after me. I pledge my unquestioning loyalty to Megatron and the Decepticon cause.
And each verse is more complex than the last.
I shall devote my spark to achieving our goal of a Decepticon-controlled Cybertron by any means necessary.
And I thought they were going to do something where, like, by the time you get to the end, because that last stanza is incredibly long, and it's like something to the effect of like, oh yeah, and you pledge to Cybertron and taking over the universe, and like this, that, and the other thing, and it's like 15 different things.
Surrender is not an option.
I was thinking they were going to do this joke where like Mix and Scrap start like stumbling over their words, or forgetting, or mumbling, or something like that. And the fact that they didn't do that, they're not trying to undercut it. They are trying to present this as completely serious and incredibly earnest.
Yeah. Yeah, and it does come off that way, and it's really smart. It kind of sets the tone for the whole thing of the, this is serious. This is something bad is happening here. Good for Megatron, bad for the rest of the world.
And it is funny though, because like I could see Megatron at the head of a Nexium type of thing, and just because of how extra he is, and he's incredibly verbose and dramatic here. But like we've already said, you know, the ritual itself is very serious, to the point where like Lugnut and Blitzwing are like holding these like weird like Energon candles. Like the only thing they're missing is like hooded cloaks or something like that.
Yeah, like a secret society getting inducted into.
But the thing that to really underscore here is the branding. You know, the entire branding ceremony. First, he pulls them out just piping hot, ready to go. And this, as a first-time viewer, I love seeing like callbacks that end up being like call forwards that I get to pick up on later. Like in the Transformers 1 trailer, you kind of see the evolution of how D16 becomes Megatron. First, he has like a hand scratched type of Decepticon symbol, but then you see like in the first teaser trailer, you see a white hot brand hitting the ground, with the implication that, you know, there's a stamping ritual or something. So I think it's cool that like I was so fixated on Brian Tyree Henry saying Decepticons rise up that I missed that well, there's a branding ceremony. It's taken from this episode. Like, I mean, I think branding becomes a trope in other Transformers media and fiction. Like it even goes back to like the comic books. I remember like G1 Jetfire gets like his brand like stamped on him through like this like, you know, mechanical arm type of thing. But like for me, first time viewer, this is the first time I've seen this type of ritual where it's like, not only are we stamping and branding, burning the Decepticon symbol into you, but one, it's shown to be incredibly painful, and you get a new paint job. Like now we are, not only are we iconic Constructicons green, but even their yellow eyes turn blood red. It's like we're really bleeding the crystal here.
Right. Yeah, and it's no little sting. I mean, there's like an inversion of color. There's light shooting from their eyes and mouth, like Shrek style. It almost feels like an infusion of Dark Energon or something. Like there's something more than just a brand, or just like a surface level thing happening.
So with the ritual complete, it's time to see the fruits of the Constructicon's labor, and we're gonna fire up the space bridge and cue the Millennium Falcon hyperdrive not working sound.
Yeah.
The space bridge doesn't work.
Right. Something goes wrong. We don't know what it is. Sumdac isn't sure. And I noticed at this point, like, this is really smart, because it's been playing this whole time of like, is Sumdac working for them? Is this sabotage? Is this part of his plan? Is he surprised? They play this, not only have they played this the whole season, but they really punch it up for this episode in particular.
Yeah, and for things coming up later in the episode, there is a little confusion about motivations and loyalties as well. But for now, Sumdac is stumped. He doesn't know why the bridge isn't working. You know, Megatron had put in like this unusually large shard of Allspark fragment here, and I guess I'm a little unclear about some of the origins of these things. Like, which Energon shard is this? Have we seen this before? Is this one that Megatron just happens to have sitting around? And it also kind of makes me kind of want to go back and relitigate. Mix and Scrap are not even like Retgar. Like, Retgar is powered by an Allspark fragment, similar to Starscream at this point. But that's not the case for Mix and Scrap, right? Like, they were just like imbued with like Allspark energy. So they're more like the Dinobots.
Right. But yeah, they are like the Dinobots, because the Dinobots were Earth constructs, and so these were vehicles brought to life.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's just kind of interesting to me too, to where these guys, Mix and Scrap, are so eager to take this oath and had to like make pledges to places that not only they've never been to, but have never heard of. Like, and it doesn't even occur to them to be like, wait, what is going on here? What, like, yeah, it's odd. I mean, I think Abby said it best in listener feedback, where it was just like, man, they betrayed their friends for booze.
Yeah.
And I think with the Constructicons, it's a combination of a couple different things. One, obviously, they've succumbed to peer pressure. Like all of us that went through DARE back in elementary school were always afraid of, because Blitzwing just shows up with barrels and he's just like, I got more of that where that came from.
Yeah.
So I mean, so they're lured in with with the oil, but also we also know that these two guys take pride in their work and that they are proud of what they've accomplished. So it's probably one of those things where, given the right circumstances, they probably would have helped anyway. Just for the not the thrill of it, but just like the satisfaction of doing a job that's appreciated.
Yeah, well, it could definitely be both, and like the oil booze kind of metaphor fits into, you know, real life cults and one of the tactics they use. So it's all kind of there. I mean, this whole opening is pretty uncomfortable from that perspective. It's really dark. It's very serious. I think it was kind of a smart move to not undercut it with jokes and humor, because my brain was going that same place that yours was. It's like, oh, they're gonna butcher the thing and like, hey, what do you say? You know, it's a really uncharismatic situation about to happen.
Yeah. Well, and one other note on that before we go to the Dark of the Moon, my favorite place, favorite place. But like the other thing that was going through my mind while I was watching the oath sequence is marriage vows. It's very similar. And like when my wife and I got married, it was very much like that, where the officiant says like, you know, this, that, and the other thing. Eventually gets to like, do you? Yeah. Do you? Yeah, man. You know, that kind of stuff. But like there were parts of it where it was like one or two lines too long, but it was just like, wait, what, one more time? And then he did the thing slowly and did it back slowly, and it worked out just fine. But like it was one too many lines where it's like, oh shoot, now I'm lost.
Yeah.
And it ends with, you know, and liberty and justice for all, you know, pledge the Decepticon flag. Let's go to the moon and catch up with our buddy Starscream, who has some new friends.
Yeah, he's got this sexy new army of multicolored clones. He's doing a little Allspark fragmenting of his own here. He powers up his clone army from the one little piece in his head, and they immediately start showing off their big personalities here. We get to see all the facets of Starscream here.
And it cracks me. Well, first of all, we start with questions. You know, we've follow up and questions more accurately. I obviously the trope of Starscream clones have been established before, and now we see what I thought, and we were talking to Abby about this when we were talking about A Fistful of Energon. It's like the characters we see here now are the characters that I thought we were going to see once you see that first orange guy. I'm like, oh man, are we going to start seeing some like top tier named Starscreams? And we didn't at that point. And but we certainly get them now. But the thing that I thought was interesting, and this is throughout this whole episode, is, I mean, so we will refer to the clones by their names because they are named. But the thing that fascinates me within the context and canon of this episode is they are never named.
Yeah.
And during my Seibfest rundown, I talked about the Skywarp figure I got, and it says on the box, you know, Skywarp is the cowardly clone of Starscream, and it also talks about his teleportation ability, which we do not see in this episode. But it's fascinating that none of these are named, and I don't know if there was a reason for that, because I wonder if there is a dichotomy or a difference between what the toys are doing and what the fiction within the show is doing. Because, well, let's think about this a little bit. So you've got you've got a Skywarp, a Thundercracker, a Ramjet, and a Sunstorm. We'll talk about Slipstream later because that's a whole other thing. Right. But like none of them present as what their canon characters are. Like the personalities are completely different. Like, I love that Skywarp is a coward, but that's not really his character. His kind of traditional G1 character is sneaky but dumb. You know, he's kind of a thug.
Sure.
You know, Thundercracker is certainly a warrior and boastful, but he's also kind of like conscious denier type of thing. Doesn't fully believe in the cause. Sunstorm is a mad god with like cosmic powered and a fried processor to go with it. And really, I don't know anything about G1 Ramjet's character. Like I know about Dirge, death comes to he who crosses me, but like, that's all I could tell you about any of the Coneheads. Like, I don't think Thrust has a discernible personality either, but it's interesting. So it's a very long way of saying that, like, within the canon of the show and even going to the credits, none of them are credited because it's all Tom Kenny, but like, I take that to be literally, these are all just Starscream. Like, I think these are just the names of them for different toys. So it's like, you can't put a Skywarp looking Starscream on the shelf and just call him Cowardly Starscream. That doesn't make sense, because you also got to keep using the names for like copyright purposes. But like, I don't know if this is sparking off too much litigation too early, but like, Skywarp isn't Skywarp. He's just Cowardly Starscream. It's like, Thundercracker isn't Thundercracker. He's just boastful Starscream. In fact, actually here, I'm trying to scroll through the TF wiki because I believe they're given like comma names. So like Thundercracker, comma, the egomaniac Starscream, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Right.
Or like, since we're here, so it's like, so you've got Thundercracker, the egomaniac Starscream. You have Sunstorm, comma, the sycophantic Starscream. You have Ramjet, who is I love this entry on the TF wiki. I'm finding this in real time. Ramjet, comma, certainly not the liar Starscream. The original Starscream and not a clone, which I think is terrific.
That's hilarious.
That's pretty awesome. But yeah, so Ramjet is the liar. Skywarp is the coward, and then you got Slipstream. So anyway, I guess it's a very, 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 very long way of saying, like, I think these are just different aspects of Starscream, because they literally are. Like, they're shards of his Allspark fragment, and that piece isn't very big to begin with. So it's like I think we're further away from what we saw at the end of A Fistful of Energon, where it's endless. It's fields, Neo, actual fields, endless fields of clone Starscreams. But like, if he's snapping off like a tiny sliver for each one, and that sliver ain't that big to begin with. Yeah. It's not like the thing Megatron has, where he's like jamming it into the Spacebridge terminal. Yeah, I guess I have a bunch of different questions about like, how many of these are there? How many of these can there be? And what... Well, I think I just answered my own question. I was going to say, like, and how are they imbued with different aspects of Starscream's personality? But we see it when he activates Skywarp, because, like, I think it's the act of putting in the sliver of the Allspark fragment. I don't remember if like the color changes, because like when we see the endless clones, they're all Starscream. They're all like, Starscream Prime color. But now all of these knuckleheads are all different colors.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things to remember here. One, there is this sort of spiritual supernatural versus the science behind the Allspark. We always have to remember that. So what it takes for Starscream to do this may not be the same for another person. How it might be teaching a lesson in that every fragment contains another piece of the personality of Starscream. And so it also, and then the other thing is, it also makes a lot of sense that Starscream would create just a billion clones before he had a way to power them. And now he's seeing sort of a limit to what he can do. Oh, I need a little piece of the fragment for every one that I do. So there can only be so many. And then on the flip side, that you have the fragment being like, yes, but you're going to have to stare into this fractured mirror, a little piece of you every time you make one. I love that. I think there's something so poetic about it.
And I love in this sequence, just in a way of like subverting expectations, when you start off it's just the dudes. Like, he starts off by, Skywarp is the one that's given life, which I think in a weird kind of way is almost a G1 reference, because Skywarp is the first Decepticon brought back online in More Than Meets the Eye by Teletran 1.
Megatron, my leader, we are alive again.
And so anyway, I thought that was, whether it's a callback or not, I'll take it. I put it in my script.
Good.
But I like that, like, it's Skywarp and Thundercracker arguing. You see Sunstorm, kind of being like a kind of a suck up, and you see Ramjet being a liar, but you don't see Slipstream right away. It's just like, it's like, oh, there's a lady.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
She's a lady. Whoa, she's a lady.
And it is, I think I've seen this memed before, and I think like this may have been one of those things that's been spoiled for me through just osmosis, but like the conversation that he has with the clones and then ends with Slipstream, where it's just like, oh, well, you're a coward. No, I'm sorry. It's Slipstream herself that spells it out. It's like,
each of us clones represents one aspect of your personality. He's a coward. He's an egomaniac. He's a suck-up.
This guy's a fucking liar. And then Starscream Prime, who I can only describe this dynamic as a Loki Sylvie situation from season 1 of Loki, where it's like Starscream's got the hots for himself. Because like he's rolling up to Slipstream like flirtatious, and even like kind of he's like, so
which part of me did you come from?
Like, ooh, tell me more. And this is so fucking cool. Slipstream is just like,
don't ask.
That is just such a cool shutdown, because it's one of those things where you give the audience what they need without over explaining it. I love that it's ambiguous.
Yeah. Leave the over-explained to us, because I'm going to propose my theory, which is like, she's the smart one. She's the one that's just like, you figured this all out, or haven't you figured this out yet? Like, it's so obvious that this is the brains of the operation here. This is the cunning intellect, whatever small sliver, Starscream has or chooses to not use a lot of the time, as presented here. I like that a lot. Ladies are smart.
Absolutely. Undisputed.
Yeah, it all fits.
Well, and as we go through the episode, tactically, Slipstream is always a step ahead. It's like, shoot for the legs.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. It's and like you said, why haven't you thought about it? So not only is it cunning, but it's also contempt for those that can't be on her level. Like, really get on my level. There's an arrogance there.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing. And
it's funny because like you could almost parse that out between different characters. Well, that's kind of what Thundercracker is the manifestation of Starscream's arrogance. But Slipstream certainly has that as well. So it's incredibly fascinating.
Yeah, and it's just not to stay on this too long, but it is a really cool. This is one of my favorite things out of the entirety of Transformers Animated, is that this is like a great writing technique, right? Like we need a reason for these clones. We need a reason for the Seekers that they all look alike. This seems like a very smart way to bring them into this canon. And then just from a writing element, it's a great point to be like, okay, here we're going to have each of them have a different personality. This is going to be funny. This is going to be really dynamic writing. I just love the smarts that go in behind it.
Yeah.
And since we were talking about earlier, you were talking about how much you loved Skywarp in his color. I'm going to say my favorite is Ramjet.
Okay.
I really found myself kind of cementing here that I like the Ramjet colors. I think I've never been a big Seeker guy, but I think if I had to pick one, Ramjet's
your dude, huh?
Ramjet's my dude. And I really think, I don't know what that says about, I don't want to get into the psychology of why I picked the pathological liar, but I also think it's probably my favorite running joke the whole show.
Yeah, it's so good. And I love that sequence where he's literally arguing with Starscream Prime, because because it also causes another layer of questioning, is to what level of autonomy do these clones have? Like, like some seem to be more aware of who they are than others. Like, again, Slipstream appears to be kind of like the omniscient narrator. Like she knows the whole deal. in a way that the others don't. Now, obviously, Ramjet, his defining trait is that he's a liar. But when you start to pull at it a little bit, it's like, do Skywarp and Thundercracker, do they think that they're Starscream? Like, let's go back to the first time that we met Starscream clones. They all thought that they were Starscream. There wasn't any othering, for lack of a better term, with them.
Yeah, that's a great point. I wonder, was it all a ruse? Did they actually not know? Yeah, kind of the mystery of when did that become common knowledge to them? That's pretty fascinating.
A Transformers canon question, because like this is an era of Transformers that I'm not entirely familiar with. Is this the first appearance of Slipstream?
Oh, I don't know. That is a answer I don't have.
Gotcha.
That's interesting. It could very well be. I can see that.
Because, like, well, in a way, it's, and again, these characters aren't named. Like, even in the credits, she's credited as female Starscream, voiced, of course, by Tara Strong. Which, and it's so funny because I didn't know that until I got to the credits. I would have swore this was Cree Summer because she has some of that same gravelly Black Arachnia vibe to it. And 100%. I guess for me, and I don't want to split hairs and I don't want to complain, but I think it would have been cool if it was somebody else, like a completely new female voice. Like, I like Tara Strong enough, but it just seems like if you're a female in Transformers Animated, you're voiced by Tara Strong unless you're another named character, and then you get to be Black Arachnia Cree Summer, who gets to show up once every season.
Right.
At a time where I've had a conversation with Sue Blue, who did dialogue direction for TFA, and one of her main points of importance is more opportunities for female voice talent. I'm kind of retroactively disappointed by how shallow this cast is. And I think I'll leave it there because I don't want to complain, and I don't want to, necessarily come off as surly about it. But looking at the TF Wiki a little bit, it looks like the first figure of what we would know as Slipstream is actually Slip Strike, a Creo figure from 2014 with a Legends Deluxe class Slipstream figure coming out in 2015. Whereas I think in modern canon, I think, and this is kind of where I've waded in waters I don't entirely understand. I think in contemporary canon, Slipstream is more of like a repaint of Windblade, more so than she is a Seeker. Like, I've seen people do like customs of Slipstream that kind of like use the Earthrise Seeker mold that look pretty cool.
Yeah.
But like, I remember when they announced Slipstream for Legacy United, and that they were kind of disappointed that she's just a Windblade repaint. But like, I think modern Slipstream has like the vertical takeoff and landing thing. So she has the same fans that Windblade does. So it seems like that kind of makes more sense to me. But like, for me, kind of like having some out of context spoilers, but not all the spoilers. Slipstream is a character I've been waiting for, because it's just like, what is she like? What is her deal? Where does she come from? That kind of thing. And again, I love Slipstream's matter of fact answer about it, but like, she's very much a Seeker. Like, she just has regular wings. Sure, she has a more female presenting figure, but like, I would think at a time where Acid Storm in Cyberverse has both male and female Seeker body types, that like, if you do like Earthrise Starscream straight across in Slipstream colors, I would probably buy it, because like, I don't need the character to have like a cinched in waist for it to know that it's a female presenting character.
It's a great color scheme. I'd love to have that kind of represented somewhere.
Yeah, and I think that's why I've been so excited, because like, I love the purple and I love teal. Like, teal is such like a 90s color, that kind of thing. It's like, she looks like a G2 character, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
sure.
kind of why I'm so enticed by Slipstream as a character. I'm just like, it's like, what is this lady's deal? Tell me more.
Yeah, you do like the G2 colors. We've learned that.
Sure do.
For sure. But yeah, back to the show here. We're going back to the Decepticon HQ, the lair here. Megatron is speaking with his secret agent on Cybertron, aka Shockwave, aka Longarm, whoever you see them as first, Shockwave or Longarm. But they're speaking. This is all coming. They're showing everything in the show. You get up to speed so fast. If you haven't been watching the rest of the season or like watching it in pieces, this does the job here.
Absolutely. I would also mention that I stumbled around with this during Auto Boot Camp, where we see the reveal and the transition from Longarm to Shockwave. Shockwave now is just straight up Corey Burton doing the G1 Shockwave voice. Like there is like no difference to it. He's like, yes, everything is you proceed, Megatron. It's like, it's got like that warble to it that I really like.
Yeah.
But yeah, he is just, I am just surprised by how out Shockwave is. He's just like, yeah, I'm just Shockwave now. Just running around as Shockwave.
Yeah, I think, that's sort of that sort of like Emperor, I was wearing a mask before, now this is the real me, like, kind of can shine, be who he wants to be. Kind of very interesting here. But yeah, so they're chatting back and forth, and Megatron asks him, I love this scene, Megatron asks him to track down like the foremost space bridge engineer.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you don't have to look too far, sir.
Then where is he?
On Earth.
And not only that, it's Longarm's old squad mate Bulkhead.
Right.
I think that had to be like a shocker for everybody, right? Even, I mean, Longarm having been so close with, be on the same team as Bulkhead back in the day.
Right.
Just be like, him? Really?
Well, and that kind of casts a shadow across this entire episode, and in a way that kind of bothered me, like especially later when we're dealing with the Autobots and their reaction to it. But I'm just like, did none of you watch Auto Boot Camp, that iconic episode? But the reality is, like, those characters didn't. The only character that has access to that information firsthand is an actual child. It's Bumblebee, actual baby. He is baby. So, how would you expect him to comprehend that? But like this whole thing too, I love the sequence where Shockwave is like,
One moment, Excellency, while I access the Cybertronian data net.
and he's all like typing. Huh. Well, that's weird. Just like this whole realization. And to your point, Michael Anders, like you said, it's like, but Longarm was part of that as well. So he was in that lineup when Bulkhead said, all I wants to do is be a space bridge technician. So it's like, are we the only ones that saw that episode?
Well, I think it just goes to kind of show that how you quickly pass judgment on a person and it just sticks. Yeah. I mean, he was written off so fast, country bumpkin. There was no anything. And it kind of goes to show he's been working on this space bridge crew. It's kind of like that thing where you find out like someone you work with has a really specialized degree and it's like, oh, you really you should be here. I don't know. Yeah. But I guess it just blended in on the space bridge team, right? Like maybe he just, everyone's kind of doing the thing. They probably don't come across anything that needs to be like so rebuilt about the space bridge system that anyone can just pass it off. I don't think it's pretty clear when they're working day to day on just like rehooking wires or like clearing rubble that he could like rebuild this thing blindfolded.
That's a great point, and that will come into place later because I was going to have some real criticisms of Bumblebee in particular, but this kind of undercuts that because, like, again, Auto Boot Camp ends with Bulkhead proudly saying, "Yippee, we made it," and he's like, so like Bumblebee has seen this entire arc. But I think you nailed it in that I think the type of maintenance hasn't been to the level where you need an actual genius, a savant level space bridge technician to really solve those problems. I think that dovetails nicely, and I think it undercuts some of my harsher criticism because I did bump into that several times during this episode. I'm just like, come on, man. It's like, this is Bulkhead erasure here. I don't like it.
Oh,
maybe because I like Bulkhead so much. It's like, he's a sweetie. And it's just like, I don't like that his friends kind of think so little of him.
Yeah, but also very a striking condemnation of a very real world thing that happens. You just get written off as like one thing about you, and there's nothing else. As we were kind of alluding to earlier offline, people contain volumes. We contain volumes, right? It can be a lot to a person if they open up, get to know them. As I wiped a tear from my eye.
Yeah.
Projecting.
But so regardless, Megatron says, okay, well, we need to pick this guy up. We need Bulkhead, struggles with remembering his name, but he tells Lugnut and Blitzwing that they need to abscond to Sumdac Tower to pick up an item, and that this Bulkhead might need some convincing.
I also love the dichotomy here. I just want to point out that they go from talking about Bulkhead being the super genius to cutting to him, and he's just sort of like painting pretty pictures with Sari on Earth. But then they also go to the point to talk about art history a little bit. So I think that scene's great because it shows that he is quick to pick up things, and he does have a lot of time to research. And, just because you're not talking and espousing all these things all the time, it doesn't mean you don't have beliefs and intellect that you're keeping to yourself.
Definitely. Well, and this season has been marked and mired with well, Mike, you just need to be patient, because I'm just like, because I had said recently that Sari, in her growth and development, both as a person and as a character, has kind of outgrown Bulkhead. Like, she's spending more, and even Bumblebee to an extent, like, she's spending more time with Prowl and that kind of thing. And it was incredibly welcome. And you had told me without telling me that we were going to get back to that dynamic, because like Sari and Bulkhead were homies, like right. Super homies. And so it's nice to get back to this aspect where Sari is encouraging Bulkhead to work on his art, even if she is put under a massive amount of stress to do so. Like, just with like the juddering of like, you can tell she has been sitting there for quite some time.
Yeah, absolutely. So right, this whole transmission's going on. Ordering Lugnut and Blitzwing to pick up this item from Sumdac Towers. Mm-hmm. Intercut with that, we're getting a appearance of a mysterious blue racer in the forest, picking up.
Right, I forgot about that.
Picking up a transmission from the very retro Art Deco style antenna on its tail fin. Mm-hmm. We have the mysterious blue racer from the Velocity episode making another appearance. But this is the part I really like this, because the transmission's picked up. We overhear Megatron making an offer, and the blue racer just whips a shitty. The old, I don't know if that's a colloquialism for where you're from, whips a shitty and heads back the way he came.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting, because that was kind of like one of the aspects of like, during my first time watching, it was, I've said it so many times, but like, the DiCaprio meme where I'm like, ooh. But like, I'm getting, you start off with the Constructicons, you touch on Shockwave, you've got like the Space Bridge thing. You've got this reconnection of Sari and Bulkhead, but also with the Blue Racer, it's like this episode has what a season finale should do, and it's like it's pulling all the strings together. Everything is converging, and I really appreciate that it's been a half dozen episodes since Velocity. Like, we haven't seen hide nor hair of the Blue Racer, and turns out he's been here the whole time.
Yeah, I just love the level of restraint shown that this show has of like, we're gonna save this reveal for the finale. Like, you almost don't see that in cartoons anymore, because it just needs to be like, sell the toy, get him out there, show who's the new character going to be, right? I love this sort of like playing with it that's kind of the way like the real draw of like Beast Wars was, for example. Like Beast Wars, it's like, oh my gosh, who's the new character going to be? We need to know everything about them the minute they show up on screen. This is like taking its time, right? And a lot of people probably saw that and was like, that's Blur, that's 100% going to be Blur. And then we just teased it out. Now we're at the season 2 finale, and we're still haven't quite got our introduction yet.
Meanwhile, Blur toys are on the shelves. I would imagine. I mean, they
on
would
my shelf literally right now. But yeah, so So from there, we go back to the Autobot base. I love this. Everyone's a critic moment. All the Autobots are like putting their 2 cents into Bulkhead's painting. Optimus suggests a caption. I thought that back and forth was pretty good.
That is very Optimus. Like everybody has a suggestion that that is in keeping with their personality.
Yeah.
Like, Bumblebee wants more color.
Something bold.
Prowl wants more trees.
Nature can be very inspiring.
But like Optimus, again, the historian, the kind of stick in the mud. He's like, I could use some captions.
So people can tell what it's supposed to be.
And that really resonated with me because like I like art. I appreciate art, but like there are some times where things are just a little too abstract. And I think sometimes I'm very literal minded, where it's just like, oh, it's a picture of a thing, very unambiguous, that kind of.
Yeah, I mean, Optimus is like the student. He needs something he can take notes on, right? Like this is, and he's probably thinking back to all his textbooks. There needs to be a little appending to whatever picture
citation, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it was very in character. I loved that.
Yeah,
but either way, Bulkhead's had enough. He needs to clear his head. He needs to find new canvas. He's out. He's done with this.
Well, because the result is genuinely terrifying.
Yeah.
It was an abstract portraiture of Sorry before. I mean, it was weird and again abstract, but like with everybody's feedback, it becomes downright terrifying because like Sorry is just the devil, like toothy demon at this point. It's like nightmare fuel.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know that I ever want the answer to this question, but it made me wonder, like, I wonder how many times that the writer of this episode has had to deal with something like this, or even on writing for something as big as Transformers was like, there are too many cooks in the kitchen at one time. This was sort of a little clap back at someone being like, we need to put this in there. And you need to put this in there. You need to put this in there. Like, it turns it to garbage.
Yeah.
I wonder, I'm sure no matter what the real answer is, I'm sure this writer, has experienced this. Marty Eisenberg or Marsha Griffin experienced this in their life, where it's like, especially writing for big franchises, of trying to put too much input from everybody.
So we have the Blue Racer is zipping back with all of his information. So basically from there, just like smash cut, Megatron just like drops out of the sky, just shows up basically at I don't know if it's at Autobot HQ, because like I think like when Bulkhead decides to go Audi 9000 and just pieces out, Sorry's walking with him. So they're somewhere adjacent to the base.
Yeah, they're out in the woods, just trying to clear their head, commune with nature, I guess. I like this moment, just before Megatron shows up, because Sorry's showing a surprising maturity here, tender with her response. You can't worry about other people think. Again, get out of my head. This was too close to home.
Yeah.
And another moment too is the thing. What's really interesting is Bulkhead's lamenting that he just wants people to like his work. It wasn't so much that everyone was giving him input and the painting turned out bad. It's like, it's the fact that he just wanted to put something out in the world that people loved, and everyone had to, it's more than just being a critic or saying something's bad and good. It's this, I know how to fix your book. I guess that's an example that I've heard from people. It's just like, we'll write your own damn book then. Like,
right.
Why do you have to do this? I just thought that was a really interesting thing for it to take. It could have just as easily been, I'm frustrated, I'm out in the woods because everyone was talking, but it's specifically that he specifically says it's because he just wants people to like his work, and they don't. And Sorry's being surprisingly tender here, as I mentioned.
Artists are supposed to paint what they feel. You can't worry about what other people think.
Before B rolls up and just kind of bluntly tells it like it is.
If you want to paint a bunch of ugly, squiggly blotches, then who am I to tell you that it stinks?
It's a really interesting moment between them, because they've all had, like you were alluding to, they've all had their best buddy moments individually of each other. And now Sorry's kind of not vibing with Bulkhead and not vibing with Bumblebee. She's her own little thing now that she's had time with Prowl, had time with Optimus, they've been a role model to her at different times throughout this show so far. We're seeing the culmination of that here.
Absolutely. Well, and even her time with Ratchet as well. Like that, that's left an impression as well. And again, I don't know how or if they planned this from the ground up, but like I love this cast of Autobots because the cast isn't too big and everybody is so different, and you see that specifically through their interactions with Sari Sumdak. Like having Sari as kind of the sort of POV character really gets you to see the aspects of these Autobots in a way that not every show really gets to do. Like you see Spike do a little bit of that in G1, like, you know, he's like hanging out with Hound for a while, but then like drops that dude like a bad habit and just starts hanging out with Bumblebee. But like, you know, in the early goings, you know, he's like hanging out with, you know, Trailbreaker and Mirage. And it's like, oh, tell me more about like your superpowers and stuff, you know, that kind of thing. But it doesn't, I mean, that's like part 1 of episode 1. And it really doesn't go much beyond that. And
I think this is what a human character should do, right? The human character in a robot show should bring out sides of their personality. I think Sari is being used like really perfectly here in this show, and we're finally seeing it pay off.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, well documented on our show. We are very pro humans. Like, I mean, obviously we're stoked for Transformers 1 because like that kind of scratches that itch of all Cybertron all the time or whatever. But I think when you're dealing with Earthbound Transformers, the humans have to be a part of the story. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's like, I don't want to go on this whole damn thing, but it's like, I love More Than Meets the Eye and Lost Light and all that. But like, it's just Star Trek, you know, it's like, having it. And whereas it's so weird in latter days, like people forget how good Robots in Disguise was, like the other series that was going on at the same time, because it's dealing with like all like the human stuff. And like, you know, at some point you're like dealing with G.I. Joe and like, you know, like what happens after the Earth is annexed and all this other stuff. It's like I'm there for that stuff also. Like I love, you know, eccentric robot stories, but it's it's the humans as the engine that makes it go.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's true, and it's something we relate to. It's we need that there to be able to, whether or not we think we need it there, we need it there.
And to folks that are critical of the Sari Sumdak character and don't like her, I also don't understand that criticism because she's a POV character for a children's show. So it's like, who isn't constantly coked up on sugar? you know what I mean? And it's like, and maybe a little too obnoxious and awkward. I mean, because let's not forget where we first meet Sari, in that like she's shown to be awkward and kind of outcast around kids her own age. Like she doesn't get on with other kids. And ironically enough, it's this friendship with these robots, these sentient robots that these sentient robot superheroes that really kind of give her the outlet to be able to grow and flourish into her own person, because Tutorbot isn't giving her what she needs.
Right.
You know, but Bumblebee does, Ratchet does, Prowl does, Optimus Prime does, Bulkhead does.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, so I think having this group of folks be so instrumental to Sari's upbringing, because like at this point she's literally living with them. So like, you know, they're all dad figures to her. And in a longer season, I would like to see a little more of that. Like, you know, really kind of like a real, like kind of like a 3 men and a baby type of situation.
Right.
Like, see a little bit of it. Like, well, what does she eat? Well, here's a barrel of oil and some fish bones. But like, but it kind of doesn't go much further than that. I would really like to see kind of the Autobots having to look within to have the maturity to nurture a human child. You know, and what that means to have like a conversation with them. It's like, okay, this kid is living with us. As far as we know, her father is dead. She's been outcast by Porter C. Powell. We're it for her. And us and Captain Fanzone, who
of course,
who kind of come in from time to time. But like, there's a lot of narrative taffy there that's a little underutilized, I think.
Right. Right.
For at least from what I've seen here in season 2.
Well, it's a great transition point here because, we got Megatron. We got her father coming into the scene right now. Megatron, as you alluded, Megatron shows up, and just so fast too, just a blaze of glory burning in, speed lines and everything. And who do we see in the cockpit, strapped up? Isaac Sumdac. This is this moment happens so fast, but this has to be such a big moment for Sari, like just not sure father's still alive or not. No one knows for sure. And there he is, like it's some confirmation, but they don't even have time to celebrate it. They don't even have time to think. It's just, but there's this really beautiful moment where like all the blades of grass and leaves are whipping around. Sari whispers dad. And then we're just off to the races. Action from here on out. Yeah. Megatron swoops in here, just raining hellfire from above, scatters him with a bolt. We do get a little bit of a moment that really sets up a great storyline that I didn't even see coming, where B and Sari are sort of arguing whether he was kidnapped or he willfully cooperated.
Oh yeah.
Brilliant brilliant setup, brilliant storyline to go into. Anyway, I just so much happens here. We get just these two, like Marvel's Civil War did this, but over the course of like 5 movies. Like this is just a 1 line and a 1 second thing that we're just like, oh, Sari and B are kind of on the outs here now.
Absolutely. So you get a reprise of that bitchin' Megatron transformation sequence from Megatron Rising, which is fine. But when he emerges, X gonna give it to you because you've got Isaac Sumdac strapped across his chest. A image that I've seen floating around, kind of like even before I knew anything about Transformers Animated, I know that image. That imagery is iconic. Like I don't know who Isaac Sumdac is, but I know that image of that dude strapped to Megatron's chest. So incredibly iconic imagery here. I also want to call attention to, like you said, with B and Sari kind of being on the outs. You see this animation quite a lot, but like how B whips out his stingers basically like a pistol. Mm-hmm. I love how it just like flips out. I don't know if I've seen it represented that way before, but it's really just kind of like he's being impulsive and just like, doing like a quick draw, whipping it out type of thing.
Yeah, I think are you referring to how he uses it on Blur? Like
yes.
Sort of like he's approaching the car, like I know that's not great imagery now, but yeah, like that's sort of like pointing it at him, like, step out of the vehicle, and like he is the vehicle. It's a good bit.
Yeah, but you're not wrong. Even in even where he goes to take on Megatron, it has kind of that same thing where he's almost like holding the stinger hand with his other hand, like you would like a handgun or something.
Right.
So yeah, we see it with the Blur stuff later, but like, yeah, it's kind of prevalent throughout, and I don't know if that's deliberate or if it's just something that the Answer Studio wanted to throw in for this particular episode, but it is interesting imagery when you think about it through the lens of like a law enforcement type of thing.
Yeah. So anyway, the Blue Racer does show up. B has his new target. They do this cool, I want to point out this little bit of animation. They do this cool tandem whip around move and glare at each other. Something like, I don't know, there was something very like Mission Impossible 2 John Woo about this, where they whip around and they kind of glare at each other. They're both in vehicle mode, but you can tell they're like glaring at each other. I just thought that was really well used. But yeah, B is in hot pursuit. Automatically he assumes like this is a lousy Decepticon, points his stinger, calls him Zippy, tells him to evacuate the vehicle. We finally get it. We've been waiting for this the whole season now. We finally get what we've all been assuming / waiting for. Yep. This car is Blur. It's Blur. And not only Blur, but voiced by Mr. Micro Machines himself, John Machida Jr.
Yeah.
Mike, I mean, how did you feel about that?
It was great. It's like, so I knew through osmosis that it's Blur, because I've seen Blur toys.
Yeah.
I know Blur is in the show, and I do know through like credits and stuff that John Machida Jr. does reprise the role, but it was delightful to see that he's still got it. Like the whole Zippy legislation.
First of all, the name's not Zippy. As a matter of fact, I don't believe I've ever met another bot named Zippy. So one can only assume that you came up with Zippy in reference to my speed, which may be technically accurate, but lacks a certain creativity.
I don't I feel bad for John Machida Jr. a little bit because like Blur, not really a beloved character. And really his trait is that he's annoying. Like even like in Transformers the movie, it's just like, oh, you know, freaking Blur. Just I can't deal with this right now, you know.
Right. Even Wheelie is like, this guy's a little much.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And you see that in season 3 all the time. Like for some reason, somebody thought it would be fun to pair Blur and Wheelie together, the two most irritating characters together. And it's something, but it's delightful here. It is a lot of fun. I love this design because it's now I wonder where the chicken and the egg thing is, because like I really liked IDW Blur, like like where he's, essentially like a nightclub owner, running McAdams basically. And, kind of like a retired big time racer type of thing, kind of like a Lightning McQueen circa Cars 3 type of thing, where it's like, I feel like IDW Blur when we meet him is kind of in that mode a bit. But yeah, it's a great take on the character, but I bring that up because I love that design as well. So much so that I bought Velocitron Blur because he looks like a Casey Collar drawing brought to life. Oh, sure. Like he's even though he's retooled from Studio Series 86 Blur, he's IDW Blur, which I really liked. Like I think he actually wears the mold better as IDW Blur than the Studio Series one. Hands are a little too big for my taste. Why the long face? Anyway, but yeah, I didn't realize that iteration of IDW Blur took so much visual language from animated Blur. I guess I didn't really, because like I had no relationship to animated Blur in 2008, 2009, but like when it's like 2013, 14, 15, and you see Blur in there, I'm just like, I like that he's he's lithe, that he's got like a like a runner's body type, that kind of thing. And I love that they do that here.
Yeah, I mean, this is my favorite version of Blur from like all the Blurs throughout the legacy of Transformers. This really is my favorite. I love the tall, super lithe design. In classic Derek J. Wyatt fashion, it's taking all these little bits of pop culture, combining it one. We have elements of Sonic in there. We have elements of the original Blur. We have it's also evoking Tron somehow.
Oh yeah.
The toy does the same thing. It looks so freaking cool. And like you were saying earlier, Blur's always kind of been the annoying one. Here we're seeing he's an intelligence agent for the Elite Guard. Like, well, first of all, you know how I love Elite Guard members. Like, this is kind of my wheelhouse. And now Blur is one of them and has the insignia. I was like, oh, this is like a serious job Blur. This is an important person. This isn't just a joke. He's here doing something important.
Absolutely. So, but two things to underscore here. One, in typical Bumblebee fashion, as he takes off after Blur, getting completely distracted by a completely different side quest, he basically abandons Bulkhead to get taken out and kidnapped by Megatron. Yeah. So like all of this happens while the Mission Impossible 2-ing is happening. Right. But then like the thing that I found kind of irksome at first blush when Bumblebee is interacting with Blur is that I don't know how to feel about this kind of covert observation that Blur has been doing. Like this dude not only has actionable intel, but he's had it for what I think is fair to say, a while. I don't know the span of time, but I don't think this is new information. I don't think it's like hot off the press, or at least, I mean, the Space Bridge stuff kind of is, like with Shockwave when he intercepts the transmission.
Right. Yeah.
But he knows about the Constructicons, and it's like, again, my favorite. I mean, like this almost needs to be a button. It's like, how much time has passed? Question mark, exclamation point in Terabang.
Well, I mean, I guess I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but I feel like the Constructicons are about as interesting to the Elite Guard as the Dinobots were, right? Like they know they exist. It's a thing. The Allspark does what it does. I don't know that they're I think the space bridge is what sets this all off, and I think that's why we see that scene of him intercepting that in particular, because that was we're implicating the real Cybertronian spy, but also we get, now that we know something's up with the space bridge, and this is like again, not a great metaphor, but this is like a 9/11 level event. Like, this is a very serious, if something happens with the space bridge, like this is what makes this actionable.
Yeah, no, and I think actually putting the analogy aside, I think you're right though, in terms of like actionable intel and just intelligence gathering. I think I was bogged down in how much Blur knows about Bumblebee and his friends. And it's just like, but that's his job to work covertly. And if you take it from the example of like intelligence agencies, it's like there's been nothing actionable to warrant Blur to reveal himself, to essentially blow his own cover. Like, he's undercover under the badge of the elite guard. So like these Earthbound Autobots are of no concern. I mean, really, when Ultra Magnus did his Zoom call, it's just like, just in case you see something, it's like, the traitor Wasp has escaped, and if you see him, let me know, that kind of thing. But I don't think he seemed particularly interested in the Earthbound Autobots as a resource, because he didn't even really know the connection between Bumblebee and Wasp. If he had, that would have made sense. It's like, I know that Bumblebee was the one that implicated the traitor Wasp, so of course he's going to take revenge. Hey, Bumblebee, be on the lookout. It wasn't like that. Bumblebee reveals that. He's like, wait a sec, I know that asshole. And and even Magnus is like, wait, you know this guy? Well, you know what? If he comes looking for revenge, drop a dime, that kind of thing.
Well, I actually think I have a little bit of a different take on it. I almost think Blur's there to keep an eye on the Autobots, because this adds an interesting layer to the Elite Guard being like, all right, Earth is in good hands, we'll take off. I think that tender moment we got of like Ultra Magnus being like, well, Optimus can be in charge here, is undercut by the fact that he leaves this operative on Earth to keep tabs on everything. Like, well, no, at the end of the day, Optimus can't be trusted. And so that Zoom call that we've talked about, with Ultra Magnus calling the Autobots, I wonder if that's not just part of the intel of like, I'm going to call them, I'm going to say, hey, here's a thing that's happening, signing off, and now let Blur watch what happens with the fallout. So I think that was, now we're seeing a new recontextualization of that call as more of a baiting versus just an informing. Yeah.
Well, and it's making chess moves, and it's starting to push dominoes. I like that explanation. So regardless, we are back at one of my favorite places, Decepticon HQ, and Bulkhead has been, he's dragged out, and it's like hey man, we need you to fix the space bridge. And he's like, I'll never help you. That
right.
That kind of typical thing. Bulkhead is surprised to see Isaac Sumdac as well, still in his little fish tank tube, laser tube habitat that he's got going on there.
Yeah, I thought that was a really nice little moment that shows that he still cares so much about Sari, and he knows that this is the answer Sari's been looking for. He's almost more interested in it than for any other reason interested in that.
Yeah, he kind of loses track that he's been kidnapped at this point, because like he locks eyes with Isaac, and they're just like, whoa, it's you. Whoa, it's you. That kind of thing.
Yeah, and then we get what I'm sure you love is we get plans on plans on plans on plans from Megatron, right? We see, I love in movies and stuff when the villain's like, I anticipated this and that's why I did this, and we just get this like triple layer of it here. So they want Bulkhead to build the space bridge, which is already a plan on a plan,
right?
And then Megatron's like, well, if you don't comply, I'm going to use the Headmaster unit, and we get the payoff of what Blitz and Lugnut were stealing from Sumdac Towers. And then if that doesn't work out, it's because he's already anticipated that maybe that Bulkhead won't be scared of this.
Right.
Well, guess what, buddy? It wasn't for you. Like, I'll use your body to like destroy your friends, starting with your best friend's dad.
Right.
And it'll be your hands doing the cutting. I think, and that if there's one thing we know about Bulkhead after 2 seasons, like this is the exact place to go if you want to get him. If you want to corner him and coerce him, go for the friends.
Yeah. Well, and to add to that, it's using Bulkhead's experience as or trauma of being a victim of the headmaster. And because like that's a moment that's very much seared into Bulkhead's memory, to the point where first he's flippant, like you had said. He's like, been there, done that. Who cares? Whatever. Let me know, let me know when you got something real here. But when Megatron lays out the other plan C, I guess.
Oh, so very brave of you. Of course, your suffering will be relatively insignificant compared to what your friends will endure when I destroy them using your body.
It really clicks with him because I would imagine that Bulkhead is flashing back to that sensation of his body just running amok, just like bashing through walls, Kool-Aid Man style, and having a panic attack of what is it then when my formidable body can be used to hurt my friends. Because I don't know, we know now that Bulkhead is a genius, like a savant of sorts.
Yeah.
Let's take it a step further. He's Batman. Like, he probably knows how to hurt his friends. Not just that he can, but probably knows how as well.
Right. The restraint he's been showing is about to be taken out of his hands.
Right.
So that's probably very scary.
And that scares him. It terrifies him to his core, to the point where he relents.
Yeah. I'm also flashing back to that scene at the end of Auto Boot Camp when Bulkhead comes to the rescue of Bumblebee and they have that tender moment, and then they pull back and reveal that this was all happening like right outside the Decepticon lair. I thought, at the time that could be played as like, oh, you almost found it, guys. Irony. But now it's like, oh, was there like some sort of listening in, or like, was this, now I picture Megatron being like, oh, friends are really important to him. This guy is loyal to a fault.
Yeah.
I can use this.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, like, how thick is that wood door? At the
Megatron's got a glass up to it with his audio.
He's like, yes, friendship.
Yes, write that down for later.
Yeah, write that down. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so Isaac Sumdac just has a clipboard that just says friendship on it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and then tying it back to this, the last thing, well, first of all, we see Bulkhead try to plead with Mixmaster and Scrap. This scene's so layered, right? Because first Mixmaster and Scrap come in. Bulkhead tries to plead with them like, hey, it's your old buddy Bulkhead, remember me? No, because you actually caused them amnesia.
Yeah.
Like, seeing this is tragedy 101.
We know that bot.
Not ringing any bells.
Well, and they aren't lying. That's the other thing too. It's not like, oh man, you're old news. No, they literally don't remember. So that adds yet another layer to it as well. And yeah, just the desperation from Bulkhead here. It's wow. It's drama on top of drama. Like, right. We're really stacking the melodrama here for sure.
And to add credence to my earlier point, the last thing that Megatron says before Bulkhead ultimately agrees is "You have no friends here, Autobot." I think that's a really important line.
Yeah,
I think he knew exactly where he was going with this.
I also like, because Megatron is so sassy and has so much arrogance and contempt for those he deems beneath him, I love how he throws around Autobot like it's a slur.
Yeah.
And he's just like, you have no friends here, Autobot. I love it. And every time he says it, like, to the point where he thinks so little of these Autobots that he doesn't even refer to them by name. Because like, they're nameless to him. They're just anonymous Autobots. It doesn't matter what their names are.
The very word on his tongue is like, has to just spit it out as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, not to nitpick continuity here, but question for the group: how do the Decepticons know about the Headmaster and the Headmaster unit and Headmaster technology? Like, I'm trying to remember who has had exposure to it. Like, we know that Bulkhead has had firsthand experience with it. as has Optimus and Sentinel and the rest of the Autobots for that matter. But I don't think any of the Decepticons have been involved at that point, because like even like when Masterson was looking to like collect a ransom, that was just dealing with Sumdac and the Autobots. And to take it further, Porter C. Powell doesn't have any kind of allegiance to the Decepticons. He's not like a Dylan McDermott situation here in Dark of the Moon. It's not like he's like secretly working for the Decepticons or something there. But I'm sure in the interceding time to maybe Marvel No Prize this a little bit, we don't know what access Isaac Sumdac himself has to Sumdac Industries records or tech or something. Maybe it could be something as simple as a conversation where like, you know, because I would imagine that there are times where Megatron just goes to Isaac and just like teases him. He's just like, you know, and you know, you used to tinker around with my disembodied head. Now I'm going to tinker with you, that kind of thing. And I don't know, maybe it just came up organically in conversation. Speaking of heads, you know, what's the deal with this head?
Well, yeah, I think we're the couple puzzle pieces we're missing are Sumdac was a vegetable. When he first came to the Autobots, he was so in shock and trauma. And then one episode, all of a sudden there's one episode where he's just very like lucid and back to himself.
Yeah.
You know, there's a long time in here that could be Megatron plugging him for information and you know, it could be a matter of them just talking, but there could also be some technology where he's stealing or like probing his brain for something. I mean, there's definitely some routes here that he could have taken. I guess it didn't shock me so much that someone, the person that would have the most intimate knowledge of the Headmaster unit has been in Megatron's captivity now for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
That would have to come up at some point.
Yeah, great point. I also want to call attention to Megatron's like 2-finger cable, jumpstart cable type of thing. I just thought that was kind of a goofy visual. And it reminds me of how unsettling it is that the Headmaster has an expressionless face. Or more accurately, that it has like the single expression, like the Mona Lisa smile. That's just like constantly in that state of just that singular facial expression. It's unsettling, especially
when you take the goofy pilot out of the mix. It's a kind of a haunting thing. It's a scary device. I mean, losing control of your own body is like, you know, top 5 fears of mine, and I would think a lot of people would have that too. It's actually a very scary kind of contraption here.
Absolutely, especially with the seemingly innocent pinwheel design on the bottom, underscored by this hauntingly accurate laser beam. This tech is
this should be used in like surgery or something. Like this should have been already bought out from underneath Sumdac Industries to be used elsewhere.
Yeah, well, I think it's one of those things where Masterson is just more interested in making Headmaster units. Oh, by the way, I invented a laser scalpel to lop robots' heads off. BT dubs.
Yeah,
it's
well,
like,
he's right. He's like the Bulkhead, as Bulkhead is to space bridges. He is to laser scalpels. But he doesn't care about it because he's too busy making warbots.
Exactly. So from there we go back to Autobot HQ. And Blur is there and he's talking to Optimus and really just, I think, and maybe this was some of the aspect that was kind of bugging me a little bit, because you learn here that Blur pretty much has a way more vivid picture of events that have been transpiring under Optimus and the Earthbound's Autobots' nose this whole time. So it's one of those things, and I do love that we're using Blur, the fast-talking character, to get the other characters caught up. Like literally, just he's spewing exposition here, but like he's just doing it on the quick in a way that's.
I had a note like that some here where it's like this just must be like a writer's dream, or like Marty Heisenberg's like, thank you, right? Like here's someone that can get the story out fast and furious and then just move on. Well, there's one moment here that I want to call out too is, as tough as it was when Bumblebee questioned Sari's father's allegiance, Optimus questioning it is like even worse. Like that's like her guy, that's like her big dad figure. And him just saying like,
to be honest, sorry, I don't know what to believe.
Just promise me you'll get him back here alive.
I promise.
He's unsure of it. Nobody really knows. How can you not believe him? I got big like Jyn Erso and Cassian Andor vibes here.
Oh my gosh.
Like his blaster was in sniper configuration. Like when Optimus takes off, she's unsure that he means he'll bring him home safe.
Right. And yeah, I mean, what a revelation that like first that, you know, we learned that Isaac Sumdac is alive, but yeah, that like we were already saying that he's been working with the other side for so long. And it's not all that inconceivable given how Megatron Rising went. You know, because like the Autobots have already gone through this, because let's not forget, because other characters won't let you forget later, that Isaac Sumdac is singularly responsible for Megatron being brought back online with a healthy new body and an appetite for conquest.
Yeah, it's a great point. I also love this scene being butted up against this next scene. Because here we're talking about who's Sumdac working for, who's he been working for this whole time, when really now we have to worry Bulkhead's like building the space bridge for them. Like, you know, let's not worry about Sari's dad at this point. Bulkhead's like literally made the shift, and it's done in this cool thing where he's like ordering mix and scrap around. For some reason, this is a very iconic scene to me. I think about this a lot. This scene where he's like, I love it, where he's like the smart guy now, and he's like ordering him around, and then he's going toe to toe with Sumdac and Smarts, talking about space bridge technology. A lot of layers here again.
Absolutely. One last thing on the Blur thing, and I think having this discussion with you rattled loose the thing that was bothering me. Like, cause like I've been spending the majority of like the last hour trying to kind of like land on it and articulate it. Why is Blur's withholding of this information so bothersome for me? He knows where the Decepticon base is and has the whole time. I think for some reason I really crashed up against that really hard on my first time watch. I'm just like, the thing that everybody is looking for, this guy just knows, and he's known the whole time. And again, not to evoke your 9/11 references, but it's kind of like sort of on that level. It's like, wait a sec, these guys have been in this country the whole time, that kind of thing. But yeah, I think and in context here now, it bothers me less, especially now that we've litigated it, but it really kind of gave me the screaming shits first time around. I'm just like, oh, I just really don't like that. But I will also say, though, that speaks to the arrogance of the Elite Guard. This is very much an Elite Guard move, withholding intelligence like that.
Yeah.
For all the reasons that we already said.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, isn't this kind of the plight of the intelligence agent or the undercover operative? Like, you know, any sort of person that's been embedded in you know, a villainous group, like, at what point do you reveal yourself? I would imagine if it were me, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if it were me and I was the intelligence agent, God forbid that ever happened, and I had to go undercover in like a group, in like a gang setting or something, I would never know when it was worth blowing my cover. Right. I would need someone whispering in my ear, hey, now's the time, you know, let it all out there. I wonder how many atrocities I would commit trying to stay undercover before I actually did something about it. I know that this show in particular doesn't go into this too much with Blur's character, but it got me thinking about that, of like, just when is it worth it? I mean, how much, every single second you're in there being like, yes, I know where the base is, but what do I miss if I go report this right away? Like, every single second, is there going to be something more important that I should have been here listening for, but I blew it because I ran over to a telephone quick? Yeah. I don't know. It's crazy.
You know, and I've read a number of spy novels and seen espionage movies, and I think everything that you're saying stacks up with that trope. And I think my reactions are just kind of more knee jerk, because you're right. It's like, and there's a toll in the intelligence business as well. Like I would have liked, again, not for this episode, but just for my own self, where like Blur would have had like that self-realization. It's like, oh, I knew this the whole time. You know, it's like,
Right.
or like something to where it's like he chose to observe instead of intervene, and there's a cost to it. But too much nuance for this episode and this particular show. I do want to get back into the scene that you were just alluding to, how it's butted up against Bulkhead being the smart one and Mix and Scrap just moving around cathode ray tubes, which I like. And in this lighting, you really see the purple and green Constructicon colors really pop. In the mine, it almost has like a blacklight texture to it. Like that neon green just really pops. It really, really sings. Very, very cool.
Yeah, it kind of actually brings me to a question I wanted to ask you about the Decepticon layer in general. You know, I guess I didn't want to spoil anything, and I kept thinking like, oh, you know, this is just a temporary layer. But now that we've had an entire season of them in this underground cavern, what do you think? Do you like them being like literally underground? They don't have like a very technological base. They're just carved out of the earth. I mean, how does that sit with you as a Transformers fan?
It's really cool. I like it. I mean, the symbolism, obviously, it's like, so, you know, yeah, they're literally underground, and they've utilized this cloaking technology that helps them stay hidden. But it is interesting that they've made a kind of a nice tidy home here. Like you have like this column of like Bat computer like stuff that looks kind of like a Decepticon face. You have Megatron, who has crafted himself a work from home space with a throne, also with like a Decepticon adjacent face on it. Right. And yeah, no, it feels, now that we're here at the finale, this feels the most fully realized and the least temporary. It seems like they're cool being here to launch their assault to retake Cybertron. Like they're established. They're comfortable here.
Yeah, almost like they crawled in there out of necessity, but now like it's working for us. This is our base.
Yeah, it's like, I like the vibes here. It's like, you know, the climate is good so that I can, I can do my venting for my private blend.
Right, it's the perfect wine cellar.
Exactly.
It's what really sold the rest of the house. The rest of the house is okay, but this great wine cellar down there.
Exactly. I think that's what it is. Which actually we kind of see the kind of vineyard, for lack of a better term, the winery for lack of a better term. But yeah, no, I dig it. I like the base, and I like that it kind of keeps some of that kind of G1 adjacent, well, we're just going to put our face on everything type of thing. It's like, tell me you're not hiding without telling me you're not hiding, that type of thing. Yeah. But yeah, I like that. The base is pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, speaking of, this base, I love this scene where they're in the base and they're talking about, this episode plays into this spycraft, who's on whose side thing so much.
Oh my gosh. This scene, oof.
Yeah, like they're like, you don't know who's doing. I mean, we're already questioning like who Sumdak's working for, but now Sumdak is clearly showing like he wants to do the right thing by the Autobots, and now Bulkhead wants to maybe defect, or like we don't really know like what's going through his mind here, but we do have that scene from earlier with the painting where he was like, I just want to do something great, and that drives him to this point of like, well, fine, I'm going to make the most perfect space bridge ever. I don't care who it's for.
Right.
At least they want me here.
Yeah. And again, nothing is wasted. Like that directly ties back in. And there's a part that like deliciously cringes in how Bulkhead and Sumdak are just missing each other. Like, Sumdak thinks like everything is like with a wink and an eye. He's like, oh yeah, be sure and put that tube over in that corner crack, like wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
And you can see Bulkhead becoming increasingly annoyed.
Why doesn't anybody think I know anything?
There's just this complete disconnect where Bulkhead has made the decision to help, and maybe because of his personality type, that maybe he's such a genuine person that I don't think he has it in. He doesn't have the capacity to lie. I don't think he's capable of lying. because he's just so earnest and sweet and genuine and sincere that like when he relents to Megatron and says, "Oh man, I will help you, just don't hurt my friends," he means that. He is now a bot of his word, and he has made that decision to help Megatron. Yes, of course, the perspective of like, I want somebody to appreciate my work comes in, but also it's like he's being true to his word, and this Sumdac style duplicity just isn't in his processor. Like he just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. But anyway, back to the moon.
Yes, let's go back to the moon. Meanwhile, on the moon.
Yeah, well, I do love the established settings we have here right now: the warehouse, the Autobot base, the underground layer of the Decepticons, and the moon for Starscream. This is a good triple threat we got going here. Mm-hmm. So Starscream's up there with his newly minted Seekers. He's unveiling his plan to take back the Decepticons, make them great again, if you will.
Yeah.
But the super cocky one kind of steps in, takes the lead, right?
You second-rate clones aren't even worthy to breathe my exhaust fumes.
I think this is such a funny scene because, like, he can't even like lead his own clones, but he's laying out this plan to like become the greatest leader ever. And boy, it's becoming more and more of a Trump metaphor now that I'm saying it out loud.
Yeah.
But can't even lead his own little cadre of clones, let alone the rest of the crew.
And yet Slipstream is the one that hangs back and kind of basically explains what's going on. It's like, well, duh. And it's like, hey, you want to go wreck some shit? Let's go wreck some shit.
Right.
And
again,
then
smart one.
Yeah. And even like Starscream Prime is kind of getting led by the nose by Slipstream, even though it's his plan.
Right.
Like you said, she has his cunning and intelligence unburdened from all of his other nonsense. So, but it's interesting too. And obviously this is not how it goes, but just as a thought experiment, it would be fascinating to see, because we know that the clones are aspects of Starscream's personality, and we also know that they are literally shards of the Allspark fragment that's keeping Starscream alive. It would be fascinating as like a thought experiment, again, not here, but like if as every new clone is made with an aspect that Starscream Prime loses that trait.
Oh yeah.
Like, that'd have been kind of cool. Like suddenly he's like, I'm not a coward anymore. I'm not an egomaniac anymore. I'm not a liar anymore. I'm not a military strategist anymore. And to see like, as he keeps flaking off portions of his personality, what's left over, that kind of thing.
Right. I would imagine he would sort of like rescind on this goal that he has of taking over the Decepticons. He would sort of see the world in new colors, that there's bigger fish to fry. But then he'll have this army of clones that is hell bent on it.
Yeah.
I can see that. That's a really interesting take. That would be really cool.
That's some real True Scream stuff there.
Too subtle for animation, maybe, when you're trying to draw big swooping battle scenes to have that level of inner thought and turmoil.
Yeah. Well, and to sell toys of different colors of the same kind.
To translate to the 2D painting as well as you.
Right. I love it.
But yeah, now things are going to get really interesting as we kind of float towards the end here. We see Sari and Ratchet back at the Autobot ship. Sari's trying to get it started with her key. This is something we're kind of right back home with Sari using her key for something. Yep. Ratchet actually wanting it to happen for once. Mm-hmm. He's pounding his fist on the dash in anger, and then apologizes. Sari says, that's not necessary. Ratchet does the whole like, I wasn't talking to you type of thing. So something's up. Now we're starting to see something's up here, especially when he says he'll have to perform open spark surgery on the ship.
Right.
That's got it. This is a big red flag. Mike, I don't know. I mean, we've alluded to things you're spoiled about. If you didn't see it coming by now, open spark surgery on a ship points to something.
Yeah. And I don't remember at what point I actually got spoiled. I don't know if it was before the 6-0 poll or not, but I remember seeing a GIF over and over of people like voting for animated to be the best Transformers cartoon, and it was the GIF over and over of Omega Supreme. Ironically enough, and I could share this now, not from this episode and not from the next episode. So I'm like, oh, that's from something else entirely then. Okay. Well, I'll throw that into my loose change drawer of spoilers without context, because like I have all kinds of spoilers without context. It's like, and again, I try to make it a point to talk about them when we actually encounter them. So like, you know, the Isaac Sumdac being strapped to Megatron's chest. It's like, that's imagery that I've known for as long as I can remember, but without the context for it, that kind of thing. But like I've known for a good long time that that the ship is Omega Supreme, and I think I even knew it in our discussion of Transform and Roll Out in episode 1, because like I think there's some counter stroking in that one as well. It's like, you know, Ratchet's like, oh man, old girl, you know, let's see what you got, you know.
Oh yeah, that
kind of thing. And I think there's a reference to like Project Omega or Weapon Omega or Omega something in there, and it's like, so tying together all the clues that I had, it was pretty apparent. To say nothing of the fact of like conversations I've just had with people, even like before we started this project. Like I remember I was at a TFCon a number of years ago, and we were talking about like Titan class figures. Mm-hmm. And I think like the Arc was already out, but like the Nemesis had been announced but wasn't out yet. So I think it was kind of like in that time frame. And it's like, well, what else can you do with Titan class? And it's just like, well, you know, one of my friends, it may have been Diecast, I don't remember, or maybe it was Melvar, but it was one of the Radio Free Cybertron guys. One of them was like, well, you know, you just do animated Omega Supreme. Like the parts are already there. You just retool the Arc into Omega. And I'm like, yeah, that would be.
And you threw your earbuds across the room.
Well, but again, this had to have been, I don't know, months before we started doing this project. So it's like, so technically it was still kind of like spoilers without context.
Right.
I know specifically we had not started the show yet.
Oh, wow.
So, but anyway, like, so I'm like in that conversation, I'm like, yeah, that would be cool. And I still think it would actually, that you could probably do a decent animated Omega out of the Arc, that the War for Cybertron Arc, because like it's big, it's chunky. All you got to do is give it a different head. Like, skipping ahead to the next episode, but since we're on Omega legislation, I think Omega Supreme in animated looks more like the Arc than Omega Supreme, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Just in like the proportions and the body style, but I think let's not forget that this is 2008. You know, we've talked about like pulling names out and name usage. What a cool way to reintroduce Omega Supreme in a way that's different than like Unicron trilogy stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
I have some thoughts on that. I'll save it till when he's actually introduced as Omega Supreme. We're still just Ratchet stroking the countertop here, talking to a mysterious force.
Yeah, lotioning and oiling and lotioning, just constantly.
Okay, who let Lita in here?
Constantly polishing that countertop. But also we get the thing about like you said, about like the open spark surgery, but then you also get this thing about like, well, here's what we got to do. We need to gather the all spark fragments and put them back into like the matrix chest for matrix looking chest, for lack of a better word. And the weird thing that picked up is like, I don't have it in front of me, but it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of Allspark fragments in there. There's maybe like 4, maybe 5. Right. And it was kind of interesting because like, you know, after the Elite Guard episode, we get this perspective of the Autobots' mission and kind of like, you know, it's going to be like Allspark fragment creature of the week, that kind of thing.
Right.
But what ends up happening is that the Autobots don't end up collecting a whole lot of Allspark fragments. Like they don't collect Retgar's Allspark fragment. The Constructicons are like the Dinobots. They're not fragment powered. Like really the only one that they actively, well, they collect a few. They get the one from Master Disaster's remote. You get the one from Slow-Mo's timepiece, but I think that's it. I can't think of other ones that they've actively collected.
Yeah. Well, I think when you get into taking away someone's life force, right? Like I think it gets really tricky. I think that's what is one of the underlying themes that maybe didn't get spoken aloud was, we sort of have that moment where like, okay, we have the trajectory of this season. It's the hunt for Allspark fragments. Oh, and then when we get there, it's like, oh, we can't take these though. Like there's some that are off limits to take, and getting into life and some of those other philosophical things about the Allspark. And we still have to remember this is still almost kind of like a religious object to them.
Yes.
Like I can't imagine the ramification. It would be like if your boss was like, I need you to take the soul from everybody really quick.
Right.
And you're like, well, no, or I'm going to at least need a promotion before we talk about that.
Right. Well, and to not lean into that too much harder, but you look at some of those creations like Retgar, for example, like Retgar or the Constructicons, the Dinobots, like and we talked about a lot of this with the Dinobots, but like there is arguably a certain level of divinity there to where it's like, I almost need one of these Autobots, like say like Prowl or somebody, to be just like a religious nut job, to be like, it's like, dude, this is something that has been imbued with life from our creator. We cannot mess with this. We have to respect it as Cybertronian life. And like you had said way back when we were first talking about the Dinobots, it's like I had, it was during Auto Boot Camp when the APDC guys had asked us, do the Dinobots have souls? And you had said brilliantly that they have arguably more of a soul than your average Cybertronian because of the circumstances of how they're infused with life. And I think that's something that can't be underplayed too terribly much in the context of collecting Allspark fragments. It's one thing to like grab a fragment out of the side of a truck.
Right.
It's another thing to, and I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm so eager. I'm so eager to talk about the second episode. Okay. I'll come back to it. Okay. I'm just going to earmark something called vision legislation, and we'll come back to it.
That's good. I look back to it.
But because that's not here or there right now, we're hanging out with Blur and the Autobots, and we're going to storm the Decepticon base.
So in the forest, Blur is leading the Optimus, Bee, and Prowl to the Decepticon lair. In the dark caverns, the partial team takes on Blitzwing and Lugnut. There's a very intense battle here. Like this is where it starts. This is sort of the level of fight scene that we saw all throughout the entire season 1 finale, but now it's happening here in these caverns, and trying to get the cuffs on the two Decepticons.
Yep.
I love this thing too. Well, first of all, Blur's the one that does it. It's really kick-ass, like drive off this thing and whip around them. It's a cool animation, and Blur cuffs really the two Decepticons. Yeah, I don't know. It's almost like this, a ghost or a phantom or something was like all I could think. Like it's like Danny Phantom, if you're a Danny Phantom fan at all.
Sure.
There's some kind of possession thing going there. But he whips around him, cuffs him. I thought this moment kind of passed very quickly, but B has to admit he isn't the fastest anymore.
Yeah, I'm glad.
What a traumatic moment.
I'm glad you stopped that, because like he kind of says it over his shoulder.
Okay, I give. I'm officially no longer the fastest thing on wheels.
And it's like, wait a sec. Nope. Stop. Go back.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm glad they had him say it. I'm glad. I'm sure they didn't want to ruin the momentum of the moment in this finale here, but it's a big deal, right? Like speaking of characterization, this is like all we know about Bumblebee is all he cares about is being the fastest.
Right.
Tough little moment for him.
Yeah, but also one of some decent personal growth. Bumblebee, I feel like, has been on a characterization roller coaster this whole season. It's like, he learns, he matures, he goes back to being a stinker. He grows, he matures. And like, I think it would be exhausting to be around Bumblebee, because like, this is just how he lives. Just this constant, just up and down and up and down. We're full of volume.
Right. So you're thinking this is just a moment of clarity from him where he's being mature for once. And like 2 weeks from now, he'll be like, I think I'm the fastest.
Yes. I think that's exactly it, because he's seeing Blur in action with his own 2 eyes, and he's just kind of like kicking dirt, and he's just like, well, fine, I guess I'm just not the fastest. But fast forward to like 3 days later or whatever, where he's just like, maybe like, to speculate for the future, maybe after like Blur goes back to hook up with the elite guard or something like that, and like they get back to like whatever normal is back on Earth, and it's like, remember that time when I was the fastest?
Right. Well, actually, now that you say that, it really kind of speaks to maybe what happened was, maybe that's exactly why this line was delivered this way. Instead of it being this, oh my God, the saddest, I'm not the fastest anymore. Maybe he doesn't really believe it. Maybe it just feels like it's the thing he has to say because everyone's kind of looking at him. And he's just like, yeah, sure, maybe I'm not the fastest anymore. Like I even care. But deep down, he's like, no, I'm still the fastest.
Yeah, well, and a couple of the things in this fight as well. First of all, we've talked about Blitzwing's size and scale. He's a big dude.
Yeah.
But we've only seen him recently fight smaller characters. Like he mixes it up with Bulkhead, but like when Optimus pulls out the axe and Blitzwing just catches it, and how impossibly small Optimus Prime looks next to Blitzwing. Like that.
Oh yeah.
That's some iconic imagery right there. But then also Michael Andrews' favorite, you get some shuriken action, having no effect on Bulkhead at all. I've done it again. I think the next Too Furious drinking game is every time I refer to Lugnut as Bulkhead, because it's not a bit. It's just how my brain is wired. For some reason, like when they're not in a scene together, I will always call Lugnut Bulkhead. I do not know why.
Bulknut, Lughead. There's something there. I don't know if that makes it better or worse.
You're making it worse. It's all coming apart.
Anyway, anytime.
Sure I can.
Sure I can action. For sure. But yeah, speaking of Bulkhead, that's who we're talking about.
Yep.
Elsewhere, he's finished his work. Megatron orders Sumdac to fire up the machine. And Sumdac is still in like this wink mode. Right. Yeah. This is pretty sad too. Really plays into like the scariness of when it does actually work, because he's like kind of like wink. Oh yeah, here it is. It's about to fail. Oh my God, you really built a space bridge for Megatron.
Yeah.
What are you doing? And it has to be, now that we're kind of getting a better glimpse into what Isaac Sumdac has been doing all along, this really sucks for him, right? Because clearly he's been held in captivity this whole time, doing exactly what Galen Erso did, which is like, sabotaging this whole thing. Now we see that he was actually stalling for time, and then they bring in Bulkhead and he just does it. He just does what, so he didn't have to go from point A to point B. That's 6 months in captivity or whatever.
Right.
Because he could have just built it and got out of there, right? If the end game was going to be Megatron has a working space bridge, he endured torture for no reason.
Yeah, for nothing.
Yeah, that's brutal.
And it's, oh man, it's so tragic too, because like, we talked a lot about, Bulkhead's motivations about like, wanting to make something great and for his work to be appreciated. And the other level of it kind of doesn't matter who it is, almost kind of like a negative attention type of thing. It's like, I want attention, but I don't care if it's positive or negative. Attention's attention. But I also think though, that same genuine sincerity to Bulkhead is like, he's, as much as he can't do duplicity, he doesn't lie, but I think he's also incapable of doing poor work. He's incapable of doing shoddy work. Like whatever is going on in his head will not let him do bad work. I just don't think he's wired that way.
Yeah, that I can see that. Right. And maybe that's why, he's always had such a enjoyment of his job on the space bridge work.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's work. He likes working. He likes doing something he's good at.
Yeah.
That's really insightful. Yeah.
It's interesting to spend this much time intellectualizing about Bulkhead, because quite frankly, we haven't seen him a lot recently. So it's kind of nice to be able to talk about this, but anyway, so Megatron is monologuing and boom, here come the Autobots. Like they almost need like a theme song. It's like you could almost hear like here come the Autobots. Oh, let me fly. Like they need like their theme music coming with them as they Kool-Aid Man through this wall here. And it's fascinating as we wrap up the episode how weirdly parallel it is to the end of Megatron Rising Part 1. Because, like, you know, there's a little bit of a skirmish. Blitz and Scrap join the fray. And there's a little bit of that, you know, where, like, you know, Mixmaster is, like, you know, pumping goo out of his hands and things like that. But really, what it kind of holds on is Optimus Prime being stunned and frightened by the now functional space bridge, and he looks at it like he's only a couple quivers shy of having the same glassy anime eyes as he did when he beheld Megatron's return at the end of Megatron Rising Part 1, and that's where, you know, that's where that episode ends. But this goes one measure further, and it's like, oh shit, all is lost. You know, the space bridge is activated. Megatron's plans are going to be fulfilled. Not so fast, because here comes the twist on the twist. Because even like in a cliffhanger ending, it can't help itself from having double endings. But here comes Starry and the Jets. Love it. Shout out to TFU.info Transformers University. That's my buddy Ant's joke. Starry and the Jets.
You can do pop retribution. We're allowed to take it.
Yeah. There was one time I bought. I think it was actually Starscream. It was at Walmart. I bought a Starscream figure and I bought a bottle of Starry, the not 7-Up soda, and I took a picture of it, sent it to him. I'm like, oh, it's Starry and the Jets. And I'm like, and I made sure specifically to say, I bought this soda to take this picture. I don't like Starry.
And you dumped the soda out. You just
I drank it, but it's not my favorite. I like Sprite. But anyway, so this is kind of like where our cliffhanger is, where, you know, not only is it Starscream, you know, where's Ironhide when we need him to say to say the line, it's
Starscream.
But also he's got like all of his little buddies, and the pattern and the speed with which the clones are flying is exactly the way Starscream himself was spinning around Sumdac Tower at the end of Megatron.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very similar. So I love that you have a lot of callbacks and references within itself. So I thought that was pretty cool, to where, like, you know, the look on Optimus Prime's face is very similar. The look of the configuration of the jets is very, very similar. And with that, to be continued.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, as we close out too, that moment, the other thing I wanted, the reason that animation is so great is very much this like Magneto, Children of the Atom, like it's sort of like particles surrounding like the atomic core. It's really done really cool.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's good stuff. And you see the reactions to everybody in that room, including Megatron himself, who has just like this indignant scowl on his face. It's like, this guy again?
Yeah.
Great.
Oh man.
So yeah,
that's the end of part 1.
The end of part 1.
Right.
Post-show banter.
Right. Insert post-show banter here. Well, man, these seasons come and go so fast. It's just like, you just feel like you're hitting your stride, and then it's like, oh my gosh, it's already the ending. And yeah, I feel like more so than the Megatron Rising Part 1. This feels more like there's like a cliffhanger within a cliffhanger. There's like all these story elements that are coming here, really beefed up, like the compounding storylines here.
Yeah.
Whereas I just picture Megatron Rising like a 40-minute fight scene.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I guess with that, no time for the mailbag, no time for preview haikus. There's nothing. No time for no G1 scores. We just gotta drop it here because we gotta run off and go do the next episode. To the next episode.
On and on. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Cool. Okay. Bye.
Bye. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Please leave.
put some diddly doots in.
Want to be a guest on the show? Send us an email to mikes2furious@gmail.com. Interact with us on social media. You can follow 2mikes2furious on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 2mikes2furious.
You are Mike. You are Mike. You are Mike.
Yellow.
Family used to make fun of because I'd say Lello.
Oh, I like that. I like that even better, actually. Lello.
I had this little blanket. It was Lello. That's been my color ever since. And then, of course, Michelangelo came out and his bandana, depending on who the animator was that week, it's a little yellow at times. So I don't know. I got into that color big time.
I don't know. I mean, yellow is almost orange, or orange is almost yellow, more accurately.
Right. It's yellow adjacent, at least, right?
There, exactly. I mean, to say nothing about our Constructicon friends.
Oh yeah,
because it's like, oh yeah, low. No green for me.
Right.
Amazing.